I am Garrett Titus, the data manager here at MWF, and back here with another interview of another ambassador. So kind of, first question here, like, who the heck are you?
Okay, well, my name is Nuridia Nulliner. I'm from Missoula, Montana originally. I've lived here my whole life until I went to college. So I moved away to Washington to go to college. Ended up getting a degree in biology, and then quickly moved back as soon as I graduated. So currently, I work for my parents at the family business. I grew up hunting, fishing, and hiking in Western Montana. So the outdoors has been a huge part of my life.
Yeah, and what do you do for work there in Missoula?
Right now I work for my parents. They have a appliance repair business. So I kind of work in the office, and then recently I've been going out installing dishwashers and stuff like that, just kind of learning what they do and helping out as much as I can.
I could definitely use some help. We have not that you can see it, but we had this little we bought this deal on Amazon that was like a couple $100 because this house that we live in currently doesn't have a dishwasher, and that is, oh my gosh, is that horrible. I'd never lived in a house that didn't have one, so
Oh
modern
no.
amenities are amazing. Um, so you said you grew up in Missoula. Where'd you go to school in Washington?
Went to Whitman College in Washington.
Where's that at?
It's in Walla Walla, Washington.
Gotcha. Cool. And then, you said that, obviously you've been in Missoula your whole life, which is a dream, I'm sure. But, what was your introduction to hunting and fishing, in the outdoors? Like, what was that at an early age to you?
Um, so for me, it was so my parents they didn't have a lot of money, so hunting is how we fed ourselves. So at an early age, I was taking out on hunting trips and stuff like that. So actually, my first elk pack out was at 6 months old. So my dad had shot a cow elk and he needed some help getting it out, and so my mom was right there to help him.
That's
So it
cool.
was a pretty cold day. So she bundled me up, and she always jokes that like you could only see like my eyes peeking out from all the jackets I was wearing. Um, so they corded that elk up, and when they got to the road, they'd set me at the end of the road just far enough where they could see me. They'd go back for a quarter and they'd drag it up to me, and then they just kept repeating the process till they got to the truck. So that's what hunting looked like for me at an early age. And then got into fishing also at an early age as another way to put food on the table, but is also a way to spend good quality time together with the family.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that, when you can't even remember your first time doing something outside, like we talk about growing up into it, that's pretty awesome. You said
Yeah, it
you
was pretty
like to
great.
feed your family, and that's kind of how you fed yourselves, with wild game and things of the land. Like, what's your favorite dish? What's your favorite way to eat?
Oh,
Thing that you're like, oh man, I can't wait. We can have X.
oh man, it's got to be probably elk tacos is number one. But I mean, man, elk Thuringer sausage, like I can just when we're out there hunting, I get so excited about that. I'm like, man, if we get one, then we can have sausage for so many days. And it's kind of like what I have for lunch when we get one.
Oh, that's great. That's I love tacos, obviously. I think everybody does. What is do you have anything that's like super off the cuff, I realize, but what's like your most interesting outdoor story? So like for me, just as an example, I was picking mushrooms one time on the side of a mountain in a burn, and talk about the weirdest thing that has ever happened to me outside. And there was like either an earthquake or a bear hit a rock, or the rock decided that the boulder, I should say, decided that it was time to roll down the mountain. And so I'm picking these mushrooms, and this thing rolls down the mountain at me, and I have to literally dive out of the way. It was Trey Curtis and I with BHA, and I literally dove out of the way of this boulder, and that was like the scariest and also the most interesting or weird story that I can think of that I've dealt with outside. So, what do you have?
Oh, wow. Well, nothing as life-threatening as that, but
It's so weird.
um probably like I can remember the first time I like called in an elk by accident. So my dad and I were hunting and it was just a long day. We didn't see anything or hear anything and we started heading back and walking down the road and I'm sitting there practicing my bugling because I was still pretty young and my dad is a very patient person and I'm very grateful for that. But I'm sitting there practicing and then all of a sudden we hear this elk bugle in the distance. It was very faint and I was like, no way, like that was the worst bugle I ever did. And I'm just practicing. And so we just sit there, we wait, and I just start practicing cow calling, and we sit there and wait, and nothing happens. So we're like, it was nothing. So we start walking off, and then all of a sudden, this bullock just pops out of nowhere, just looking right at us. And of course, none of us are prepared for it. So we just sit there watching it, and just kind of like circles, and then walks back down the mountain. And I remember turning to my dad, and like my eyes were just huge. I was so amazed by like how big they were and just that had just happened. It was just so crazy to me.
How old were you?
It's probably like 7 maybe. I was pretty young.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I don't know very many 7-year-olds that have called in bulls, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty lucky. I think that was just a testament that like you don't have to be good at elk calling to call in an elk.
No, that is a crazy story. What so you're busy. I realize that you're involved in a handful of things here. You've got your day job. What pushed you? What made you want to become an MWF ambassador? What was that push?
um Probably like other folks, you hunt for so long and you start seeing the changes on a public land especially. We hunt places and I mean our family's hunted here for generations and we started noticing we weren't seeing as many elk as we used to. And we're like, well, what's going on? And so I was just got really curious as to what were the negative changes. I'm like, I didn't really notice much, but so it made me want to know what was going on so that I mean I could be more successful, but also I cared about the wildlife too. So I started looking around and I started seeing people talk about Montana Wildlife Federation. And then I started watching like the hearings for bills and then the Fish and Game commissions and going to the meetings that Fish and Game puts on. And so I'd see Montana Wildlife Federation pop up quite a bit. They'd be testifying on behalf of hunters and sportsmen for, certain issues. And so I'd go to the website and um, just look up, like, just kind of educate myself because there are so many tools. And so I started really admiring the work that they were doing. So I wanted to become an ambassador to help create more positive change and then just bring awareness to different issues that hunters and anglers face.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I'm so glad that you took the step to get involved. I think that it can be a scary step. But what is so interesting about our ambassadors as a whole is they're relatively young people, which is really exciting toward the future of conservation because as we've seen, historically it's been older generations, and I feel like our generation is really trying to take a step forward here. You've kind of touched on this already. You grew up hunting and fishing. Why are you still doing it? You said you've noticed some changes, and obviously Montana's growing, and maybe things aren't what they used to be in certain places, or why hunting and fishing still? Why is that still something that drives you?
I think it's because it's just so ingrained in my life. I mean, early age going camping when you're really young and it's just you come to care about this and you also want future generations to care about these things and experience these amazing times that you have in the outdoors as well. And so I'm also pretty stubborn and so I want to create change. And so it's just so important to me. I mean, I don't have kids right now, but maybe someday. And, I want them to have the same opportunities as well. And, even if you didn't grow up doing this, I want people that have no exposure to this just to come and see like what is out there, what Montana especially has to offer for the outdoors and, get them to care about it as well. Because I mean, the outdoors is so important in our life. I mean, it's a great stress reliever. Um, you get to learn, you just constantly get to learn when you're in the outdoors.
I think that that's, you're speaking volumes, especially the stress reliever part. I find that if I go a long time without doing something outside and really challenge myself, either whether it's physically or mentally, I tend to have a lot of pent up energy. And so I think that, the outdoors definitely provides a certain amount of um, relief from our everyday world of screens and technology and hustle and bustle of money and things of that nature. So you touched on why hunting and fishing. You touched on why you wanted to be an ambassador. Why conservation. I feel like you kind of hit it in the last question was looking toward the future generations, but why don't you try to dive a little deeper in that?
Yeah, so I mean, as you know, conservation is a huge topic. And when I first started paying attention, I didn't realize how broad and vast it can be. And you kind of get overwhelmed. It's the whole, you don't know what you don't know. So, um, the outdoors is just so ingrained in Montana's identity, really. I mean, you look at the Montana Constitution, we have the right to a clean and healthful environment. The preamble of the Montana Constitution even mentions, the grand mountains, the beauty of the state, and the vast rolling plains. And so I think those are really important to what helps make Montana so unique. And that's probably why so many people are moving here. They want to enjoy those things too. But we also have this, I think, this duty to also conserve what we have so that, as I said, future generations can enjoy it too, but also so, we still have wildlife there and we still have a clean and healthful environment for everyone to enjoy.
That is wonderful. I'm stoked to hear you say some of those things. And something that my friends and I always talk about is like, you know, politics and conservation, they go hand in hand. And if you think that if the elk could testify, and if they could, they would. And so I think it's important for us to do that on their behalf. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to get into hunting and fishing, or the outdoors in general? Like, obviously, there's a lot of hurdles. Hunting, especially, seems like things are expensive, or, oh my gosh, I don't know where to go or how to do it, or, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to catch a fish. What advice would you give to that person?
I'd say try to seek out groups that share your interests. So there's a lot of groups out there now, especially that, they take people for hikes or they take people for their first hunt. And there's all these different mentorship programs too. And I mean, it can be a little intimidating at first. You don't when you come into it, you don't know anything. Like you don't even know what questions to ask. And so I think it's important to also realize that, everyone started somewhere. Everyone makes mistakes too. And the great thing is you never stop learning at hunting and fishing, especially, but everything outdoors. There's always something to learn. Um, but also my advice to someone that wants to get into hunting is take an in-person hunter education course. That way you learn how to hunt safely. You can ask the instructors questions and they can even have connections to put you in touch with someone that will take you on your first hunt, or there's just all these different programs that they'll know about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Those hunter educators, they have such a wide reach, and a lot of them are, I mean, look at a guy like Andrew McKean. I mean, that guy was on the commission for a long time. I mean, just so involved in their own communities and can set you up for success. And success doesn't necessarily mean getting an animal, but at least being with the right people and learning how to do it. Yeah, that's wonderful. Are you a lead free hunter? I realize you're an archery elk, obviously that is, but other than that, are you lead free?
Yeah, I am. I actually just recently switched. I didn't really, admittedly, when I switched, I didn't really know too much about it. I just had a friend that was like, "Hey, if you're looking to be lead free, like check out this ammunition." And I was like, "Well, why wouldn't I switch if it's so easy for me at the time?" And so I would kind of see those stories about like eagles ingesting lead from gut piles, and they'd get sick and some would even die. And so for me, I felt this need, like I need to reduce my impacts on the environment as well, and being lead free was a good way to do it. Now, I haven't fished lately just because I've been so busy, but I mean, when I do get back to fishing, I'll definitely be a lead free angler as well.
Oh, that's terrific. As we continue to learn more about lead, and I mean, just take waterfowl for example, over the course of 100 years, and how far that's come, just because we stopped shooting what lead ammunition. But as we continue to learn more about that, I think it's important to continue to educate, because I feel like outdoors people have a great understanding of they want to take care of things. So yeah, I think that you're in a unique position being able to educate people on that going forward. Just saying like, hey, I wasn't lead free. I didn't know why I wasn't, but I wasn't. And I think that that's where the vast majority of people that are still using lead sit. So yeah, other than that, do you have anything else to add?
I think we kind of covered everything that I wanted to talk about. I mean, yeah, I just there's a lot of things we could talk about in conservation, honestly. I mean, man, this new legislative session, getting ready for that. So,
Yeah, no, and you've taken on another role as a LET chapter lead. Do you want to touch on that at all?
um, yeah, a little bit. I mean, I'm pretty excited for that position. Um, there's all these different changes, and I think that goes back to why I got into conservation is I wanted to understand how to create more positive change. And definitely paying attention to what bills are coming through the legislator is definitely a very important issue to just pay attention to. Um, you know, those legislators, they work for us. And so if we want to see positive change, we have to reach out for them and, make it known that, we want, better habitat, we want a clean environment and stuff like that.
I mean, we live in a country where we have the ability to influence decisions that are made, and politics. Gone are the days where you don't you can't worry about that stuff. I feel like now more than ever, it is we have to be involved in those decisions and situations for the future. So yeah, politics chooses you whether you like it or not. And I think that that's another great lesson.
Exactly. It affects you.
Well, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure to get to know you. And yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me.